In this video, we're going to go over a bunch of really handy tips and tools on how to move around and do a bunch of different things in Illustrator that's going to really dramatically help you when you're working on any project and document. So the first thing I need you guys to do is on the class website, you are going to open up the 10 handy tips download. I've posted the link next to this video on the class website under Unit 5. So make sure you download that, put it into your folder, and then open it up in Illustrator. You should just be able to double click on it and it'll open it up in Illustrator. And then this is what you're going to get is this document. The first thing we're going to talk about is our zoom tool. So there's several different ways that you can zoom and kind of just move the screens around and how you can zoom in and out. So the first one is actually using the zoom tool over here. The shortcut for that is Z. So if you just click Z on your keyboard, it will automatically come up with the zoom tool. It always defaults to plus zoom, so zooming in. If you click anywhere, wherever you click, it's going to recenter to that area and it's going to zoom in. If you have zoomed in pretty far and you want to zoom out, you press and hold Alt on the keyboard, and you notice that when I press and hold Alt, it changes to zoom out minus. So if I press and hold Alt, I can then click and zoom out. So that's how you zoom in and out using this zoom tool here. You can also come down here and change the document view percentage. So you could do 50%, or you can zoom pretty far in, 300%. Then the other thing you can do is technically you can go up here to view and use your zoom in, zoom out tools here, but that's kind of redundant when it's right here on the left side. So you'd want to use this zoom tool. Like I said, the shortcut is Z to get to the zoom tool. The other thing you can do is if you push Control 0, it will take whatever artboard you're on and it will fill it to the screen. So if I push Control 0, it fills it to the screen. If I come over here, it will fill, you have to click on the second artboard. So this is artboard 1, this is artboard 2. So if I'm clicked on artboard 1 and I push Control 0, it will center, close this, it'll center this artboard and fill the screen. If I'm clicked on artboard 2 and push Control 0, it will center that one. Another thing you can do is if you push Control 1, it will zoom out or in to 100%. So if you notice down here in the bottom left-hand corner, it says 100%. So it puts the document at 100%, whatever that size may be. So Control 0 is very handy. Another thing that is very important and handy to do is when you're moving around, if you'll notice, a lot of times this little hand pops up in my videos. This is actually the move hand or the grabbing hand to allow you to move the screen around. It does not move objects around, it just moves the screen. So how you get that, there's two ways. You can either click the hand tool here and move around, and you just click and drag around. You can use the shortcut, which is H, or the way I like to do it is if I'm in the selection tool and I'm moving some things around. So let's say I'm moving this guy around, and let's say I'm zoomed in pretty far, and I just move this over, and I want to move my screen over here. I just press and hold down the space bar, and it brings up the hand tool, and then I click and drag, and as soon as you let go of the space bar, it goes back to whatever tool you were in before. So if I'm in the shape tool, press and hold the space bar, move around, release the space bar, and it goes back. Another thing that you can do to zoom in and out is if you press and hold Control, you can then push the minus button or the plus button, and it'll zoom in and out. So move that back. The next thing I want to show you guys is how to duplicate objects. We talked about this in a little bit earlier video. I showed you how to make copies of videos, copies of objects. So we're going to look at this object right here, this little square, and we're going to make multiple copies of it. You can do Control C to copy and Control V to paste, and that's going to paste pretty much in the center of the page. And you can keep doing this and move them. If you do Control V multiple times, it stacks them on top of each other. So sometimes you don't even know how many you have, and it can get a little crazy. The other thing that you can do, and this is the way I prefer, is if you select your object and you hold down Alt, you'll notice that it's now a black arrow and a white arrow. It goes from one arrow to two. Then you can just click and drag, and you can make multiple of them. I'm just holding down the Alt key, clicking, dragging over, and releasing. This is a really quick way to make multiple copies. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to select multiple squares at a time, or objects at a time. You can click and drag, and you'll notice it creates a little box, and when you let go, everything in that box gets selected. So if you just want to select these ones, if you want to select all of them, so you can click and drag. If you want to select, let's say, every other square, you can select one, then hold down the Shift key and select the other ones you want. So if I just wanted every other one, I could do that, and then you could move them. So I clicked the first one, held down Shift, and you continue to hold down Shift, and you just select the ones you want. Oops. If this ever pops up, just click the little back button. Now let's say I have these selected, but I decide I don't want the two middle ones selected. I just want the outside ones. Hold down Shift and then just click on the ones that you don't want. And you'll notice it deselected them. So now I can move these guys back up. So if I want to select all of these, but let's say, oh, I don't want this one selected, hold down Shift and then select it, and it deselects. So that's how you select multiple objects or very specific objects. The next thing I'm going to show you guys how to do is use the Align tool. The Align tool is extremely helpful. A lot of times it's over here on the right, but there's a couple ways to bring it up. So we can go to Windows, go down to Align, and bring up the Align tool. Once you have the Align panel brought up, I usually like to drag it out. You can have it over here. It's this little one. But I usually like to bring it out just because it's a really important tool. Now, what the Align tool does is it allows you to align objects and distribute objects evenly, which is really helpful in Illustrator. It makes things so much faster. So when you select multiple objects, you have the Align tools here. They also appear up at the top, which is just really nice and convenient. So there's different ones. There's this one here, which is horizontal align, and we're going to do a little demonstration of each one. So I'm going to make some copies, and you are going to have to repeat this. So you're going to want some squares here. Now here's a really cool trick. If you select these 5 boxes, and let's say I want to make a copy of these 5 boxes, instead of copying each one, if you select them all, hold down Alt, you can make multiple copies. So first group of align tools we're going to look at are the horizontal align. So this is horizontal align left, horizontal align center, and horizontal align right. So for this first one, I'm going to select the first one, middle one, and last one. And I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. So I have 3 large ones and 2 small ones. You're going to select all of them, and you are going to click on the horizontal align left. Now, if you'll notice, all of them are lined up on the left side. In the center one, I am going to click horizontal align center. And then on the one here on the right, I'm going to make, on your document, I'm going to have boxes already made for you guys, so it's a little bit easier for you. And you're just going to have to line them up. So on this one, select them all, horizontal align right. So we have those 3. The next thing you have is distributing objects. So we have vertical distribute top, vertical distribute center, and vertical distribute bottom. So what that does is it changes the spacing in between each one. So if you'll notice, these are all off. There's a really thin space here, a thick space. So on this first one, we're going to click vertical distribute top. So what it does is it creates an equal distance from the top of this line here to this one here. So if you notice, there's a shorter gap between the large box and the smaller box, and that's because it's measuring from the top of the square. So the top of this square to the top of this square is the same space as the top of the square to the top of the square. Then the next one that we have, and I'm going to just throw that in the middle, is to vertically distribute from the center. So it's going to measure from the center of each square. This one makes it pretty even. So if you notice now, they are all even. And then the last one is to distribute from the bottom. So if you notice, it looks identical to this one, except the bigger gap is here instead of down here. So I'm going to have a third page on the document that I post for you guys with these boxes for you to practice this, so you don't have to make all the copies. And then I'll have labels for what you need to do for each one. The next thing we have is the vertical align tool. So this aligns everything up on one line. So if you'll notice, these line things up this way, and then this is going to line them up this way. So this aligns from the top, aligns from the middle, and aligns from the bottom. Now, since they're all the same size, it doesn't look any different. But if I make a few squares bigger, bring them in. All right, now you'll be able to see vertically aligned top, center, bottom. So I'm going to do this one as vertical align top. Then I'm going to make a copy of it, and we're going to vertically align from the center. Now, we also have distribution here as well. So if I collect all of these, we can horizontal distribute left, horizontal distribute right, and you notice these boxes are a little bit different. So it's creating equal space. Now, if you feel that this is too, like these ones are too close, you can move them over and then select them again and do it from the left. Should stretch them out, because it always does it within the spacing that you have from your first box to your last box. It's not going to extend it out this way. There we go. There's a little bit of spacing. So if I want a bigger gap here, I have to move the edges out. And then you select, because you'll notice the in boxes never move. It fits everything else in between. Okay? And then you also have equally distribute. Now, if I select this whole thing, let's say I want to move it over here, you just use the arrow keys. Okay? So I'm going to create these boxes for you guys on a page, and then your job is going to be to align them following the instructions that I give you. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you guys is your rulers. Now, if you'll notice, I have like these little rulers up here. I'm going to go over to this document here. I created the worksheet for you. But if you notice, over here at the top here, I have these little numbers. They look like little rulers. And I will show them to you. So you see these little rulers right here. Now, if you notice, these numbers are really high. So what we're going to do is, if you right-click on the ruler, you can change it to whichever size you want, millimeters, centimeters, and inches. We usually work in inches. So I'm going to change it over to inches. Now, if your rulers are not showing up, you push Control R, and that will take away your rulers or show them up. Or you can even go to View and go down here to Rulers and hide rulers, or go to View and show rulers. Now, if you'll notice, it goes from the very first document. So here is 0, and it goes all the way over to 8.5, and then there's a little gap, and then it starts here, and it goes all the way over. So each artboard is 8.5 by 11, but our overall document, we'll notice, is 25.5 inches. Okay? And I know the rulers are kind of small, but on your guys' screen, when you're closer up to the actual screen itself, they're easier to see. So you're going to want to bring up your rulers using Control R, right click and make sure it's inches. The next thing that's extremely helpful with rulers is guides. If you click on the left ruler over here, which basically means right here, you're going to click your mouse here. So I'm going to use my selection tool. I'm going to click and drag out, and you'll notice this little gray dotted line. That is a guide. These guides allow you, once you click and drag and you release, they allow you to help line things up. And my guide did not show up. Okay, so if your guides don't show up, like I just clicked and dragged and nothing showed up, so I clicked, dragged, nothing happened, go up to View, go down to Guides, and go Show Guides. And there's my guides. So your guides are these little blue lines that help you kind of line things up. So it's really helpful if, let's say, you want to create something or text or headline that's the same size as this circle. You can bring these guides from the top. So I'm literally just clicking on the ruler and dragging down and then letting go. And if your ruler's not in the right spot, you can click on it and move it around. Or if you click on it, you can push the backspace to delete it. Guides are extremely helpful when we are doing different designs, lining things up. When we're doing logos and we want images to line up with text, they're extremely helpful. Another thing that you can do is under View, we have our guide settings. So you can lock your guides in place. If you put in all these guides and you don't want them touched, you can lock them in. You can also release them once they've been locked, or you can clear guides. So if I click Clear Guides, all the guides are gone. I'm going to undo that. Another thing that I find extremely helpful is your smart guides. So you want to make sure your smart guides are clicked on, and then it says snap to pixel, snap to grid, snap to point. Usually point is the one that it's on. So you want to make sure your smart grids are clicked on. And what that allows you to do is when you have something selected and I grab this guide, now what it's doing is you'll notice it's changing to pink color. So now it's showing, when I hover over, that it's pink right there. So what this does, I want to zoom in to show this to you. When I grab this guide, so I select my circle, grab this guide, it's showing pink because it's lined up with something else. Where did my smart guides go? Make sure it's selected. And it should, there you go, it's snapping. See how it kind of jumps to that point? It's snapping to the edge there. And this is extremely helpful when you are lining things up because it just wants to snap straight to it. Another thing that's helpful with the smart guides is if you make a copy of something, see how all of these little pink lines show up? It's telling me that this is intersecting right there, and it's intersecting the square on the left. So it really helps you line things up too. So you want to make sure your smart guides are on, as well as your actual guides are in view, because these are going to help you a lot in the future, and you will have to use them. So for this document, I want you to select the circle, and I want you to snap your guides to the inside point of the circle. So it's going to be right on that point. So you're going to have all 4 of them just like that. They're going to be on all the intersections of your circle. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to scale down certain objects. So first thing you have to do, click on the search circle, hold down Alt, you're going to make a copy of it. You're going to hold down the Shift key and you're going to drag it in. Okay, you're going to make a smaller circle. Then you're going to move this smaller circle and you want it in the center of this larger circle. So with our smart guides on, it makes it very easy to do this. So I'm going to grab my ruler up here. I'm going to drag a smart guide right in the center. And then I'm going to drag another smart guide or guide from the left side and drag it right in the center. So this is the dead center of our large circle. Then I'm going to grab onto my small circle and I'm going to make sure it's right in the center. And there you go. So now you have it perfectly centered. Now what happens when we select both squares? So I'm going to clear my grids here. I'm just going to delete them so they're not in the way when we're doing this. So I'm going to grab my circle here. And if I use the scale tool, which is over here, or even using the shift key, when I scale these down, you'll notice that the stroke stays the same size. The stroke is the outline. So if I come up here and let's say I make the stroke 20, you'll notice as I scale it down, the stroke stays the same size, whether it's large or small. So there is a way to make it to where when you scale things large or small, that the stroke actually scales with them. So let's say we got our circle here and we want to keep this stroke to white space ratio for our circles. To keep it to where it doesn't change, you have to go up to Edit, go down to Preferences, go over to General, and this brings up this menu. And you'll notice it says Scale, Strokes, and Effect. If you click on that, click OK. Now when we scale it down, see how it actually scales the stroke down with it, so it still keeps the same size. Whereas before we did that, every time we scaled it down, oops, it's still set. So if you go to Edit, Preferences, General, you can take that off. So before, with it off, and we make it small, the stroke gets smaller and smaller like that. If we put it back on, Edit, Preferences, General, Scale, Stroke, click OK. When I scale it down, it stays the same. So I want you to play around with that, and I want you to make your circle larger than it already is. Keep your grid lines there, and I can see them. Because I do want to see that you are playing with your guides. So you should have some guides kind of crossed in here somewhere. Because it is important for me to see you guys are using guides. So I'm just going to put some guides back. There we go. Oops. It's just a lot going on in this document, so it's trying to snap to all kinds of different places. All right, that's pretty good. So make sure you guys check out the scale and stroke effects. The last little things I'm going to show you real quick is actually how to enter full screen mode in this. So if you click Tab on your keyboard, it will get rid of all your panels. This allows you to kind of see all of your artwork without any clutter around it. So it's a great way if you're designing and you have, let's say you have your layer panels opened up over here. Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's say I have these different things, all these panels opened up. I got some brushes and some swatches, and I'm doing all this crazy work. But let's say I want to see it without all the clutter. If you push Tab, it gets rid of all the clutter and fills the screen. So it's really nice, and you could just click Tab on and off to do all of that. Now, I'm going to put all this back. If you want to see everything in full screen without any kind of borders and stuff, if you click F on your keyboard once, it fills Adobe to full screen without the little tabs up top. And if you click it again, it gets rid of everything but your artwork. And to get out of this mode, you just click F again. So F regular shows the close and minimize and maximize up here. You click it once, it gets rid of that. Click it again, it gets rid of everything, and back and forth. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to bring up grids. If you go up to View and you go down to Show Grids, it brings this little light grid line all over your work. And can be really helpful when you're trying to line things up and you just want it a little easier. Now you'll notice that the grids are preset in size. If you want to change your own sizes, you have to go to Edit, Preference, and you go down to Guides and Grids. And then for grids here, you can actually customize. So right now it's a grid every 1.57 inches. So let's say I want to do every inch, and instead of subdividing 5, I want to subdivide 4. So that means every box is a 1/4 inch. So every little box is a 1/4 inch. So 1/4 inch, that's 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. So this one box here is 1 inch by 1 inch. So you can set it up however you want. So grids can be really helpful when you're trying to line things up and create some types of documents. So for your assignment, you guys are going to go ahead and do this worksheet here. So you're going to vertically align top and horizontally distribute left these boxes, vertically align center and horizontally distribute center these ones, horizontal align left and vertically distribute top, and then horizontal align center, vertically distribute center, and horizontal right and vertically distribute bottom here. So you're going to line these all up. So when you're done, they'll look pretty similar to these boxes here that I used in my example. Then you're going to enlarge your circle and you're going to put some grid lines on there. And then you are going to take a screenshot of each of these pages with the snipping tool. You can take one screenshot of both pages and turn it in as one screenshot into Google Classroom. I'm completely fine with that. So I will let you guys get to work.